Hey, welcome to episode 2 of this financial series where I'm sharing how I landed into my financial philosophy, if you will, why I paid off 60K worth of debt in under 18 months, why I made sure I have a six-figure remote job, all this stuff. And where did it start and how did I learn all the things that I learned? So I shared in yesterday's post just about what it meant or what it means to grow up in a household where as a child you're seeing all the bills, you're seeing all the debt, you're seeing all this stuff, right? So for me at a very early age, I thought, oh, credit card debt is bad. And obviously living paycheck to paycheck is not good. So we must always know exactly how much we're making it and what we're going to do with it. And also, obviously, I think no teenager, no kid loves being told no or knowing that they don't have enough. So the minute I could get a job, I did. And in New York, I think you can only work, I think like maybe even less than 20 hours a week. There's like a very specific working permit you get when you're 14, but you can work. So pretty much what I did was I got two jobs. And my first job was I was a secretary at my church. And the second job was I was teaching kids how to read. So if you were maybe in fifth grade, but you were reading at a third grade level, I would teach you how to read. So I did this. These are my first two jobs. I would do the tutoring after school, and then I would do the church job on the weekends. And I was so excited to get my paychecks. But I wouldn't say, I don't know if they still even have these, but we would get checks and I would just go and cash out the check at like Western Union or a MoneyGram or whatever the case might be. And I think I did try to save, but quite frankly, it's much easier to spend money when the cash is just in your hand. And I know we don't really have cash like that anymore these days, but back then for me, I was just like, if the cash was in my possession, then more likely than not, I was going to use it. And also by doing this method, the method of like going to a Western Union or whatever to cash my check, I was also losing money because the Western Union was taking a percentage. So pretty much I was just working and the money was flying out. And then when I think I was in my junior year, so I think the year after, I took AP classes. And when you take AP classes, actually no, so that means it must have been my sophomore year. When you take AP classes, there was this program that was going on that if you got a 4, you would get $400. If you get a 5, you would get $500. The highest scores for an AP test of 4 or 5. So when you did this, the program was partnered with JP Morgan Chase Bank. So when I got my first check from my first test, I went to JP Morgan Chase. They're like, do you have a bank account? I was like, no, they opened a bank account. So that really changed my life because by opening that bank account, I was no longer getting those fees from the Western Union anymore, but also there was a place that my money was stored. So I wasn't spending as much anymore, which was really, really, really great. So I would always my thought process was I was always going to save. But the first time I used my debit card, I thought I had money in there. I was with my friend. We were getting Toms from Soho. Like Toms were all the rage back then. And we were getting Toms and my card declined. It was so embarrassing. I was like, bro, I just got this card yesterday and I know my check cleared. And I don't remember, honestly don't remember what it was, but I remember when I checked my bank account, it was legit why the money wasn't there. But I was so like embarrassed and I was like, oh my gosh, I spent my whole childhood hating that like I was always seeing all these overdrawn accounts and look at me my first day, my first 24 hours with this debit card, I'm already doing the same thing. So ever since then I vowed that would be my first and my last time that would ever happen. And then I was really adamant about saving. So I don't know if I had a percentage of my paycheck that I would save, but I definitely knew that something had to be saved every paycheck. I wasn't about to spend my whole paycheck. So it was so interesting to me because I was talking to one of my friends who worked with me and she was like, hey, tomorrow's payday and I still have money. I should go shopping. And I was like, wait, I don't understand. And she's like, yeah, well, why would I have money roll over to my next paycheck? And it was so interesting to me because I had the very opposite thought. To me, if I used all my money by the time the next paycheck came and I hadn't saved, that was a problem. And at that point, I don't think I even had a savings account. I think I just had a checking account, but like I just knew, I had to save. So that really helped me. Having that instinct helped me as I grew older because just the money I saved helped me pay for prom. It helped me pay for transportation to my college. It helped me pay for bedding. All the stuff you need as a freshman in college, me working throughout high school paid for that. But also I worked out throughout high school, so I also paid for whatever I wanted to. If I went out to eat with friends, if I went bowling, if I went to the movies, which was huge because then I no longer felt super bad about like my home situation and the bills and the past due and all that good stuff. So that was really, really good. And then I think for me, I was very big on paying yourself first. And I might have also by this time read Rich Dad Poor Dad, because I know I read it pretty early. Think I was still pretty in high school, pretty much in high school when I read it. So the whole premise of Rich Dad Poor Dad is that Rich Dad paid himself first, and then he would find ways to pay for his bills. Now, interestingly enough, I would based on my lived experience, I probably should have said no to that. But anyway, but I was just a big proponent of like put money away. So that was really, really good. So at this point, I had mastered saving. Like I got saving down. And I had even figured out creative ways to make money. So I was getting money from my AP test. I was a secretary. What was my other job? I was tutoring. So, and then obviously throughout high school, I also worked at the botanical garden, and I just did odds and end jobs just to make sure that I always had some form of money coming in. So I felt financially good. I was like, okay, this is really, really good. And like in high school, I kind of figured out the whole money problem. But then came college applications. And I remember that I like was so disappointed in college applications and just money and scholarships. And like the biggest thing though was my parents' credit was so bad. No bank would give us a loan because their credit score was so bad. So my mom's brother reached out to a friend, and then she gave me her credit. Isn't that crazy? So I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I cannot let this lady down. I don't know this lady, and I cannot be the reason why her credit score goes kaput. In college, one of the first things I did is obviously I got a job. And I don't know where or when I learned this, but I learned that when you have a loan, you get interest and the interest compounds. So I was like, oh, if I take out a loan for $10 in January and I have, I don't know, a 50% interest rate, whatever, then that means come the next month, basically, if the interest is $5, let's say, they will add that back to your principal. So now your principal is $15. So even though you borrowed $10, as far as the bank is concerned, you're now borrowing $15 come February, and then they're going to put the same percentage on that principal. So now you're getting an interest rate on $15 versus $10. And this keeps compounding. And that's why people look up and they see that their debt is like 5, 6, 7 times what they initially took out because of the compounded interest. And obviously it works in the opposite way. So that's why if you invest and you put your money in like savings and all this other stuff, it helps you in that, not savings, high yield savings with high interest yields, or in other interest spaces, because then you get all this money. Anyway, because I knew that the principal would be affected by the interest, I made it a point that I would pay the interest of all my loans throughout college. So I think when obviously the first semester I had one loan, the second semester I had 2 loans. I did a 5-year program, so I technically spent 10 semesters in college, and each semester I took out a loan, which means each semester my interest bill kept getting higher, but I was fine by it. And I would say, I don't remember, but maybe I was paying maybe $200 a month or maybe $250 a month on just pure interest by the time I graduated. But what that did for me is that when I graduated college, I had just the principal that I took out, which was a little bit over 60K, so maybe like 62, 63K. And that is what I was like, okay, I'm going to pay this off as soon as possible. And in the next video, I talk about how I pay that $60,000 worth of debt in 18 months as a social worker working in the government. So I will see you tomorrow.